podcast.
We begin the year of our Lord 2025 with a reading of the poem Reflections on a Gift of Watermelon Pickle Received from a Friend Called Felicity by John Tobias. Reflections on a Gift of Watermelon Pickle. That is the ostensible title track to an anthology of poetry that was edited and published in the 1960s. And the anthology was called Reflections on a Gift of Watermelon Pickle and Other Modern Verse. And the concept here was, let's put together an anthology of poetry that will appeal to the kids. Something for the teenagers that we can use in classrooms that's a little more light, a little more engaging, a little more compelling for teenagers. And I can tell you know already this was a smash hit. This came out in the 60s, became a staple in North American classrooms throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, possibly even still today. And it must have been in one of my classrooms because I am familiar with it and I know it. And anytime anybody says the word reflection, immediately springs into my head on a watermelon pickle. If you say that out loud, people think you're psychotic. But no, there's a context for it. It actually comes from someplace. And as it's New Year's Day, it is a time for reflection. And so with that in mind, some of you who were in high school in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s may have just had a memory shaken loose from that dusty, cobwebby corner of your memory. Reflections on a Gift of Watermelon Pickle Received from a Friend Called Felicity by John Tobias. During that summer, when unicorns were still possible, when the purpose of knees was to be skinned, when shiny horse chestnuts, hollowed out fitted with straws, crammed with tobacco stolen from butts in family ashtrays, were puffed in green lizard silence, while straddling thick branches far above and away from the softening effects of civilization. During that summer, which may never have been at all, but which has become more real than the one that was, watermelons ruled. Thick imperial slices melting frigidly on sun-parched tongues, dribbling from chins, leaving the best part, the black bullet seeds, to be spit out in rapid fire against the wall, against the wind, against each other. And when the ammunition was spent, there was always another bite. It was a summer of limitless bites, of hungers quickly felt and quickly forgotten, with the next careless gorging. The bites are fewer now. Each one is savored lingeringly, swallowed reluctantly. But in a jar put up by Felicity, the summer which never maybe was has been captured and preserved. And when we unscrew the lid and slice off a piece and let it linger on our tongue, unicorns become possible again. Amen. You'll have to forgive my reading of that poem. I'm reading it off my phone, and my eyes are such that I gotta hold the phone out so friggin' far to be able to see it that, I don't know, sometimes you just lose the flow, you know? You get caught up more in the mechanics than the actual message, and that conveniently, synchronistically, is my New Year's message to you today. I wasn't sure I was gonna do an episode for New Year's Day. As you know, if you've been listening for any length of time, you know, like a year or more, New Year's Day is my favorite day. My favorite day of the whole damn year. And when you stop and reflect on it, you think, you know, your favorite day is the first day, and then it's all downhill from there. Not exactly, but there is something so peaceful and so quiet and so reverent about New Year's Day. There's all the debauchery and vomiting of New Year's Eve, which has its place. Kind of an existential purge, it's symbolic. You vomit away last year and then wake to the silence, to the clean sheets maybe, of the new year. But I love New Year's Day. And I'm not recording this on New Year's Day, obviously. And when this goes out into the world, I'll likely be walking my neighborhood, really indulging, savoring, absorbing that silence, and reflecting, not necessarily on a watermelon pickle, but on a different sort of pickle that was the year 2024 for me. And I don't need to go into that now. The last few episodes have covered it more or less. Wasn't sure I was going to do a New Year's Day episode, but I got a lesson on Christmas Day. It happened to be Wednesday. A lot of my favorite podcasts publish on Wednesdays, including my own. And I woke up Christmas morning and there was new episodes of Blind Boy and Jim Fortin and several podcasts published that day. And more than one of the podcasters said that he or she had chosen to release on Christmas Day because some people are alone on Christmas Day. It hadn't really occurred to me before, but there are people who wake up on Christmas Day alone. And maybe it would be nice for those people just to have a friendly voice in their ears, to have another person with them, even if only digitally. And it hadn't occurred to me because I'd never woken up alone on Christmas Day before. But this year, last year, I suppose, 2024, I woke up on Christmas Day alone. And I got to tell you, I made hella pancakes. Like an ideal stack. Like if you took a picture of a stack and put it on your menu, it was the stack I made. And they were freaking delicious, okay? But then I went out for my walk around the neighborhood on Christmas Day, and I wasn't sad or upset or anything, but I had Blind Boy in my ear walking with me. And he's one of the ones who said, some people are alone on Christmas. Might be nice for them to have something to listen to, a voice to hear. And that never really occurred to me until I was actually in the position. And ain't that just like life? And so I appreciated that. And so in contemplating releasing an episode on New Year's Day, which of course is also a Wednesday, the release day for so many of my favorite podcasts, including my own, I thought, there's something in that. Maybe there are people, the same people as Christmas Day, who are going to wake up alone on New Year's Day. And for some people, that will be edifying. For some people, that will be symbolic of standing on their own and living kind of a powerful life. And for other people, it would be really, really sad. People who maybe lost somebody in 24. People who feel really lonely and isolated. And so if you're one of them, this is for you, man, or lady, or whatever. However you identify, this is for all the lonely people, because I get it. Because I woke up on Christmas Day alone myself. And so this is for you, a friendly voice in your ear holes. And I really do love New Year's Day. I really do love New Year's Day. And the temptation, as I'm wandering around the neighborhood, as you're listening to this possibly, will be to be just reflecting on the sort of madness and magic of the year that was. But really, I want to focus forward. I want to shift away from some of the really difficult stuff that happened in 24 and to focus forward. And in doing that, I'm reminded of a bit of wisdom that I got from a witch. And I mean that genuinely. My friend Mary the witch. Mary, who is a high Wiccan priestess with whom I do a tarot reading once annually, and then when stuff hits the fan, sometimes more than once annually. I do a tarot reading with Mary, and I had one done when stuff was beginning to hit the fan with my spouse or significant other, and the decision was being made for us to separate and move on into separate lives. And so I went immediately to my friend Mary, who is one of my favorite people on planet Earth, an absolutely beautiful and powerful spirit is Mary. And we do tarot readings together, and you can think what you like about tarot. I mean, you can look at it as something silly or you can look at it as something really profound. I treat it like I treat all mystical things, which is it may or may not be true what's presented in the cards, but it's all something to react to. So if the cards pop up and say, well, hey, you're going to quit your job and move to Africa in the next 6 months, I'm probably not going to quit my job and move to Africa in the next 6 months, but it gives me something to think about. Like, what if that happened? Is there anything intriguing in that for me? Is there anything compelling about this notion of quitting my job and moving someplace? It's fodder. It's food for thought, right? And so I go into these tarot readings exactly like that. It's like, how do I react to what gets presented? How do I react to what's presented to me? Am I upset about it? Am I intrigued by it? Am I threatened by it? Am I frightened by it? And what does all of that mean? Because that, whether you believe it's real or not, points to real stuff within you. And so as I go to a psychic or I look for signs and wonders, it's always about what my reaction is to what's being presented, right? So I sit down with Mary in the fall and we do just a set of cards, a set of spreads about where things are at with me, where things might go, possible futures, right? And some of that information was conflicting for me because there's stuff that I thought I wanted. There's stuff that I thought there are ways that I wanted this to pan out, ways that I wanted it to go in the next, whatever, year, 2 years, stuff that I wanted to happen. And what the spreads were showing was something different than what I thought I wanted. And it was causing some cognitive dissonance in me. And I was a little bit frightened by some of it, some of these possible futures that were presented. Again, triggers in me stuff that's worth looking at. Like, why is it that I'm reacting this way to this idea, this notion? And what does it mean? And what does it suggest that I actually want, So some of the stuff wasn't adding up. Some of it was pointing into directions that, like romantic directions, for example, that I wasn't really ready to contemplate at that point in time. And I thought I wanted to do this. And then the cards were suggesting, no, you should actually do this. And it just created in me some cognitive dissonance. And so Mary and I were writing back and forth post-reading about clarifying what some of the information was. And I was like, it's not adding up to me, Mary. It's like, this isn't really what I was hoping for. And I don't get how things can go in a certain direction. I wanted to do this, but it's saying this first and that first. And I was in a bit of a state. Let's be honest, okay? I was in a bit of a state anyhow. And she just said something really profound that has stuck with me ever since, and I've been looking for an excuse to talk about it. She said, don't let the mundane make you forget the magical. Don't let the mundane make you forget the magical, right? And this ties into what I've been talking about recently, about this surrender, right? And about this faith and about this letting go. And as I approach the year 2025, my experiences over the past 4 or 5 months, as life has changed so dramatically for me, has been again affirming this faith in the way things are and putting a trust and putting a belief in the universe or source or God or whatever it is that works for you, to orchestrate the pieces in a way that is ultimately in your highest interest, in your best interest, in the highest good. And I know a lot of you struggle with releasing control and surrendering into what you can't really prove is real. But we do come from someplace, Me, I've been trying to really immerse myself in a spiritual kind of life. I'm not great at it, but I'm trying, okay? And one of the things I'm trying to do moving forward into 2025, as my life is utterly changed in some pretty fundamental ways from where we were this time last year. Much has changed, and I've had to deal with that, and I've had to deal with some of the suffering that goes with that, and I'm trying to shift my focus into the optimism about what comes next. And this is a really great message to hold on to as we approach a new year. Don't let the mundane make you forget the magical. You can get so caught up in the details of what you want. And this is a thing that spiritual traditions have been talking about for millennia. It's like you don't have to be in control of all of the moving pieces, right? You don't have to orchestrate everything. You can trust in life to deliver for you, right? You have your piece of things to own, but don't let all of the details get in the way of the magic. And we have all experienced magic in our lives. Like when I've talked about this ad nauseum recently, about this job that came to me that isn't what I was looking for, but is the one that came to me at the time that it came to me. And it's like, there's a magic about that arriving. And we've all experienced what we might call synchronicity, what we might call good luck. And it's the magic. It's the magic of the way things unfold that we don't really have control over. And if we surrender those to something larger than ourselves, the way the pieces can move is absolutely staggering, man. And so as I move into 2025, I am reaffirming my commitment to the magic, and that is letting go of the details of how things unfold. All right, that is working towards your highest good. That is putting in your best effort towards the things you want. That is working on yourself. That is having dreams and working toward them, but letting go of the minutia, the details, the little things that have to fall in place. You can't orchestrate those in the same way that life can. And that is the magic. And so many of us get caught up in how to manipulate this circumstance into fruition. And you just can't do it. You just can't do it, man. Not as completely, not as smoothly, not to the same effect and reward as life can if you just let go. If you surrender into the magic, it is staggering the way that things can unfold for you. We talked about my great friend Kay Howell, who at her lowest moment, she's talked about this on this podcast, which is why I feel comfortable telling the story. At her lowest moment, when all seemed lost and direction gone and wall hit, doesn't she get a phone call to say, hey, you want to go on a cruise ship for a week and do some work? 3 years later, she's doing 40 weeks a year on cruise ships. That's the magic, man. It's like I need something. I need something to go my way. I need something to open up. And a cruise ship isn't even on your radar. And then all of a sudden, this becomes your life because that moment she surrendered. That moment, she's like, I'm not grieving anymore for the stuff that's been hurting me. I'm moving forward into my life. And I think if I recall the story correctly, that day, this opportunity came to her and life opened up in a way that she never could have predicted. And that has just over the past 3 years brought some extraordinary experience into it and healing into existence. And we all have this story in our lives. We all have these people in our lives who have experienced these things too. And it's real. And I have spent a lot of my life getting wrapped up in the mundane, the details of things, instead of the magical, right? Instead of the magical, that opportunity that comes along. You know, it's like, I want to be a touring musician. And you take the steps, you do the work, you know? But it's like the right gig at the right time. You can't orchestrate that, right? And you can get so caught up in how do I make this happen that you don't let destiny intervene. Now, that is a quote that I've used before. It was a quote that Dan Carlin, the host of Hardcore History, which is one of the all-time great podcasts ever created, he was on Rogan, and they were just talking about all this stuff, like finding your way. And he said, you've got to give destiny opportunities to intervene. If you exert so much control over your direction, you don't give destiny the opportunity to intervene. That is the magic, you know? And as I enter into 2025, I'm holding on to, don't let the mundane make you forget the magical. Don't be so wrapped up in orchestrating everything, in needing to control everything, that you choke out this wonderful mystery that runs through it all. these wonderful synchronicities, these wonderful opportunities that happen that suddenly present you with a new direction, a new life, a new experience, a new person, who knows what. All of this exists in the world. And again, we can get so wrapped up in trying to manipulate and control everything, trying to hold on to so much, that we miss all these amazing opportunities that exist, that are presented, that are right in front of you. If only you would open yourself up to the magic. And so I'm remembering that as I enter 2025, and I'm holding on to an optimistic outlook. Now, this is something I've also talked about before. My therapist said to me one time, we were contemplating who knows what in the moment that was coming up, something that was going to happen or whatever. And I was having trepidation about it because I default to trepidation. I default to worry, and I struggle with anxiety, and that's kind of all tied together. I'm always kind of looking at the worst case scenario with presented with anything. I'm kind of always looking at how this can go wrong. And as a PR person, that's a useful thing to have, right? You need to be able to identify where the dangers are, and you have to be somewhat obsessive about that. But in your real life, that's an approach that can really make you shy away from trying things or experiencing new things or being open. And there's so much value in openness. And so she said to me one time, in contemplating whatever it was, she says, why don't you approach it like, how can this work out great? This situation, how can this work out great? Now, if you're like me and you're used to coming from this perspective of what is the danger here? How can this go bad? What am I setting myself up for that's going to hurt later? No. What can happen? How can this work out great? And that's just such a more exciting and compelling and intriguing and curious way to approach life. Put it in context. This is New Year's Day. Maybe last night you were at a New Year's Eve party. And at that New Year's Eve party, you were introduced to a new person. And you were intrigued by that person. Now, you've just come out of a long-term relationship. You're a little bit wary of being vulnerable. You're a little bit wary of maybe dating. Maybe it's been something that's a little bit on your radar, but you're very close to that. You've got walls up because you've just been hurt bad. And you're a little bit reluctant. And you meet this person, and there's just an instant chemistry with that person. And you know what I'm talking about because we've all felt it, right? It's not just the booze talking, right? There's something, that spirit, man, there's something there, and you know it. And so you spend an evening in proximity with, chatting with, hanging out with, whatever, this person at the New Year's Eve party. And at the end of the night, everybody's saying farewell, old saying line, all that stuff. And there's just a connection there, and you know it. And you say goodbye to each other. Nice to meet you. Had a really great time. And you go home and you're thinking, should I follow up with that person? Should I follow up with that person? Is there something there? And then immediately these thoughts flood into your mind. Oh, geez, what am I setting myself up for? I don't really know this person. We had a really great chemistry, but maybe I was misreading that. And then it's like, maybe this person's a friggin' psycho. And if I reach out, they're going to be stalking me. Or maybe they've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend who's also a psycho and going to be stalking me. Or maybe I just really, if I get to know this person, I won't like him. I won't like her. Or maybe that person's going to break my heart, or maybe I'm going to fall forever for this person and it's just going to ruin my life. And maybe this and maybe that and maybe the other thing could go really, really bad. I could get hurt again. I could embarrass myself. I could set myself up for a life of misery. Who knows? But these thoughts begin to flood in. If you were a guarded sort of a person, if you were an anxious sort of a person, if you are a wary sort of a person, this can flood in. And then you don't ever reach out to that person, and so it ends. And you don't know, do you? I mean, you feel as though you've protected yourself, but maybe you're still lonely. Instead of going into this situation being like, well, I wasn't looking for it, but the universe placed this person in front of me who I was not looking for. And The universe places hundreds of people in front of me all the time, but I don't feel a connection or a chemistry with those people the way I do with this person. Like there's something in this. And instead of being frightened of that and fearful about that, you begin to develop a certain curiosity about that. What's in this? And can I trust what the universe has presented to me here? I mean, is this a profound synchronicity that I need to be saying yes to? And then you begin to look at, how can this be great? Instead of this person's a psycho and might stalk me, or has a partner who is a psycho and might stalk me, maybe you look at it like, this is a person that could be really special to me. And we could spend some time together that's really incredible and uplifting. And who knows, maybe there's a future, right? Don't be an idiot. Don't be an idiot, but begin to open yourself up to what could be really great about this. I mean, all these fears I have about being hurt again. What if it's not that? What if this is the most uplifting and rewarding and fulfilling relationship of my life? What if this opens up a whole new world to me? Don't oversell it to yourself. Don't fall off the friggin' deep end, but approach it instead of with fear, but with a curiosity and an openness and a hope and an optimism. Ditto, maybe a job opportunity pops up. You've been with your company for 7 years and you're ingrained there and you hate every living minute of it, but it's comfortable. And then a job pops up that's, on the surface compelling to you, and you're like, well, the devil, man, well, I only got 14 more years and I can retire. So no, hey, what could be great about that job? I mean, what could be great about that opportunity? What could be great about this city where my current job is talking about relocating me? What could be great about this artist who reached out looking for a drummer, looking for a guitar player? What could be great about this band that's forming and they asked me if I want to come and sit in and try it out? Instead of being frightened, like, oh no, yes, I don't know if I'm good enough for that. I don't know if I've really got it. I don't know those people very well. I don't know. You get really freaked out. Like, oh, well, what could be great about this? And is some of the magic at work here? You're getting caught up in the mundane. That person you met on New Year's Eve, well, it doesn't really make sense because we're not in the same city, or, geez, man, he's a few years older than I am, or whatever. It's like you're getting caught up in, how can this work? Like, what are the details here? What are the functionalities? And then you crush all of the synchronicity. You crush all of the potential. You crush the magic being caught up in the mundane. And so my intention is to keep this very short today because I have to edit it, and it's New Year's Eve, kids. I have to edit this and get it up and then go off and have a really swell time. Maybe meet somebody with whom I have a connection that scares me. My admonition to you, my encouragement to you, on this day of days, the blank slate, the quiet, the peace, man, you can make your life in 25. You can make your life in 25. And the way to do it is to be open to the magical. All right. See these opportunities, see these synchronicities, and don't worry about the mundane stuff. Don't worry about the details of it. It's like, I want to play a bunch of gigs this year. I don't know with who. I don't know how that's going to happen. I want to do this. I want to travel. I want to whatever. Put that out into the universe. Work for it, but don't get caught up in how it has to unfold, okay? Let the friggin' magic work. And when you are presented with new stuff, new opportunities, new people, whatever, new scenarios that scare you a little bit, make you a bit wary, stop if you can. Discipline yourself to not indulge how this can go wrong, and just open yourself up a little bit to how it can go right. Because everything that's good in your life went right. Everything that's good in your life went right. And you had to be open to that. And I'm encouraging you to do that now, okay? On this day of days. And I'm not going to say any more, except Happy New Year and welcome to 25. And let's friggin' see how we can rock this year and how the magic can unfold for all of us. I always say good things happen when you put yourself out there. That is allowing destiny to intervene. Do not hide yourself in 25, all right? No hide in 25. Open yourself up. Put yourself out there and good friggin' things will happen, man. Welcome it all. Welcome it all. See the magic. Forget the mundane. See the magic. Ask yourself, how can this work out great? I'm going to do that. I hope you do that. And let's just see in a year where it gets us, okay? Happy New Year. Gonna shutting up, except to say, hey, kids, Happy New Year, and I'll catch you later. Yeah.
Should old acquaintance be forgot? Da, 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 da.
Nobody knows the words, man.